What's going on, guys? Jake Virgin Tech here, back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about video editing software, and more specifically we're going to be talking about the move I made from Adobe Premiere Pro to DaVinci Resolve recently. So this is a video I've kind of put off a bit. I've been wanting to make it, but I've just had other videos come up, and before I knew it, I've had uploaded 10 videos using DaVinci Resolve. So the last 10 videos you guys have seen have all been edited and exported from DaVinci Resolve. And in this video, I kind of just want to talk about my experiences, why I switched over recently, and if I'm going to continue using Resolve or go back to Premiere Pro. So first off, we're going to talk about why I made the switch from Adobe Premiere Pro to DaVinci Resolve recently. And it was kind of unexpected. I had been an Adobe Premiere Pro user for around a year, maybe a little over a year, and I really like that software. It does have its flaws, but I really liked it, and personally I didn't have issues with it up until recently. So I had always heard about people having issues with Premiere crashing and certain errors that they were getting, but luckily for me, I really didn't experience any of those errors until recently. So I had almost gone a full year of using Adobe Premiere Pro without any issues, which was really good, and that's really what made me fall in love with the software. But up until recently, I got a number of encoding errors on export, even just trying to render out one single clip that hasn't had any effects added to it, and I was getting errors there as well. So that's really what pushed me to switch into something else that's a little bit more reliable. Between the encoding errors on export and the errors I received when just trying to render a basic 1080p clip, really gave me no choice. I had to find a different solution to edit videos, and I just couldn't stay on Adobe Premiere. And this was so incredibly frustrating just because of the fact that I really hadn't changed anything. I was using the same methods that I always have for editing my videos, the same workflow, and when it just all of a sudden stops working, it's hard to troubleshoot it and get it figured out. And nothing had changed when I was mentioning to the error that I would have whenever I would try to render a clip. It's just a plain 1080p clip with no effects on it, no stabilization on it, or anything like that, and it just would not render it. I would try other clips and the same thing would happen. And this is all on the same camera I've been using for the past year, so it was really hard to try and troubleshoot that because nothing on my end had changed. I tried other common troubleshooting methods too that people have recommended when it comes to Adobe Premiere Pro, like clearing out your cache files, making sure that's all cleaned up. I did that, didn't get any results with that. I tried uninstalling the software and reinstalling it, made sure it was up to date before I did that, and of course as I installed it, and nothing. We still had the same encoding issues. So in one weekend, I said screw it, I'm going to install DaVinci Resolve and try to get this project done and see how it works. And sure enough, DaVinci Resolve, I was really surprised. I know it's a great piece of software, but the transition really wasn't too bad going from Premiere Pro to Resolve. Now, I'm not a very advanced editor. I don't do a whole lot of color grading in my footage and stuff like that, and more advanced like VFX and stuff. But for everything that I need it for, DaVinci Resolve really delivered. So the basic things I look for in a video editing software, which like I said, they're pretty basic. So I obviously need a piece of software where I can cut and edit all of my clips and create a sequence, and within that I'll use like things like speed ramps. So I need a time remapping function inside the timeline, and along with that I also need a video editing software that has a spot where you can actually change the speed of the clip itself before it goes into your timeline. So in Adobe Premiere Pro, you would go into interpret, modify footage, and then you can change the frame rate from there. And DaVinci Resolve has something almost identical, it's just worded a little bit differently, but you can actually change the speed of the clip that you have imported before it gets to your timeline. So that's another feature I usually use. And other things I typically use that most video editors do use, but for you guys that are watching this that maybe haven't done much video editing at all or are looking to get into it, keyframing is another big one. In DaVinci Resolve, it has a pretty easy system to figure out when it comes to keyframing anything from visual effects, sound, and other things like that. And DaVinci Resolve 2, from what I've seen, has a pretty wide variety of text effects that you can add in, which I always like using some text in my videos. And so far I've seen a number of built-in transitions that DaVinci Resolve also has. So as far as the workflow goes for DaVinci Resolve, it's pretty clean and it has stages like many other editing softwares have. So DaVinci Resolve has 7 different workspaces, which basically will work your way through the project, starting off with the media tab, which this is where you set up the project and import all your media, which is pretty common, and Adobe Premiere Pro is very similar. In DaVinci Resolve though, it seems very clean and intuitive, and it does order your clips nice right off the bat, which I really like. So just like in Premiere, I could go over to the media tab, set up my project before I start importing my media, and set up my bins, and then from there I can start importing all of the clips I want to use and all the audio clips I want to use. The next workspace is the cut tab, which I don't use too much personally, but basically this is just for quickly making your cuts in between clips and cutting out all of the fluff and stuff that you don't need inside each clip. This is just designed to make cutting a little bit faster opposed to going into the editing tab, but personally when I'm cutting I usually also will edit some other things too, so I want the effects option, so usually I'll just go straight to the editing tab. And that gives us the perfect segue into the editing workspace, which this is the core editing workspace where you have a number of options where you can still cut your clips and adjust things like that. You can add effects into it, make small audio adjustments, keyframing, all sorts of stuff in this workspace. This is probably one of the busier workspaces that you have because it gives you all of those options. The next 3 workspaces we have are the Fusion, Color, and Fairlight workspaces. And Fairlight is basically going to be visual effects in a node-based workflow, which I haven't messed with much at all. Most of the effects that I've used have all been in the editing workspace, but that's if you want to dive in a little bit more. Then you have the Color tab, which is obviously for all your color grading. So this gives you quite a number of color grading features. And honestly, for somebody like me who's not real experienced in color grading video footage, but I do have some knowledge on photo editing and grading different photos, it was really easy to pick up and I was able to color grade a little bit. And the last workspace when it comes to editing your footage is the Fairlight tab, which adjusts all of your audio. This is where you can do all the EQ on your audio in post. Then the last workspace, which is no longer for editing, this is the Delivery tab. So this is where you're going to be exporting your project out of DaVinci Resolve, and you can make all sorts of adjustments from there. And like Adobe Premiere Pro, you do have some different types of presets for like YouTube, Vimeo, Twitter, I think I saw. Or you just want to manually input all your export settings, you can do that as well too. So that was just kind of a brief tour of DaVinci Resolve, and there is so much more features packed into this software. And this particular software that I'm running actually isn't even the full version. So this is the free version, but they also have a studio version that has even more features than this one. So talking a little bit more about this software in general and why you guys should definitely consider it. Maybe if you're already editing videos and maybe you're in the same boat as me, having some issues with Adobe Premiere Pro, or maybe you're a Mac user using Final Cut but you want to build a PC and edit off that, or maybe you're just getting into video editing, want to make videos for YouTube, maybe you stream and want to make some VODs of previous gaming streams that you've had. Any of that stuff, this is why DaVinci Resolve should definitely be something on your radar. So a huge pro to DaVinci Resolve is the fact that there is a free version out there. And that's what I've been using for the past 10 uploads that I've had. And I am using the DaVinci Resolve 17 beta. Or you could go back to the previous version, which is DaVinci Resolve 16, and use that fully released version. And like I mentioned, there is a full version of DaVinci Resolve, which is DaVinci Resolve Studio. And from what I've heard, this is even more feature packed as you would expect from a piece of paid software. And what I really like about it too is it is a one-time purchase. So I think it's around $300 and you get to keep that software for life. And it's not a software as a service where you're paying month to month, years on end. So I really like that about this piece of software in Final Cut, is that you pay one time and the software is yours. Another huge pro with DaVinci Resolve is that it is compatible on Windows, Mac, and they do have a version for Linux. So this is a huge pro because it basically is opened up to the largest variety of users, being on all those operating systems. And I would be really curious to try the Linux version. I've heard it has a few issues here and there, but it would definitely be worth a shot and cool to run like on Ubuntu or something like that. This is great for somebody too that doesn't have all Windows machines or all Mac machines. You have a mix of different operating systems that you use on a daily basis. It's nice having DaVinci Resolve to where it is available on both platforms. Another big thing that I take into account for when it comes to video editing software, and what kind of drew me towards Premiere Pro at first, is the user base and how many people are using the software and the support for it. So about a year ago when I first checked out DaVinci Resolve, I wasn't seeing a whole lot of tutorials and people using the software as much, but coming back to it now, I'm seeing more people than ever have switched over and are making lots of tutorials on how to use DaVinci Resolve to its fullest. At first look, DaVinci Resolve is a very overwhelming piece of software, especially for somebody just getting into video editing. So seeing all these people move over to this piece of software and use it for their video production is really cool, and to see that all these tutorials are coming out for it is really a great thing and a great selling point for using DaVinci Resolve. So those are the three main things that I look at when it comes to video editing software. So first is operating system compatibility, second is price point, and third is the product support. And that's, when I say product support, I don't necessarily mean direct with the particular software company, but I just mean in general, people on the platform using it and teaching others how to use it as well. So now that we've talked about all the pros that I've found using DaVinci Resolve, we're going to talk about some of the cons, which there's not many, but they're definitely noteworthy. So first thing is, I have been using the DaVinci Resolve 17 beta, and I have encountered a couple errors when editing in the 17 version. And one of them was crashing when I would go from one workspace to another. If I would go from the editing tab to the color tab, sometimes I would get a crash, and that's really bad if you don't have the autosave feature on. So that's one thing to definitely do as soon as you install DaVinci Resolve and before you start editing, is to enable autosave. So if it crashes, you should be good. But yeah, crashing was one thing, and I have noticed it got an update and I haven't seen it happen since. So I believe they fixed that issue for the time being. And the only other error I encountered was after one of the more recent updates. I noticed whenever I would try to export in the YouTube format, it wouldn't export with audio, and I made sure I had all my audio checked off, made sure nothing was muted. So it would export the clip, but I wouldn't have any sound. So that was an issue. But basically the workaround for that is I just did a manual setting export, made sure I had the right codec, for me H.264. I exported as an MP4, exported it as a 4K video. So all of those settings, I just did those manually, made sure I had what I wanted, did the export, and sure enough I had audio. So I think it's just the YouTube preset they were having some issues with. So hopefully they'll fix that in a future update. But that's it as far as errors go, which is pretty solid, especially for a public beta version. So the only other thing I was a little bit confused about is when you create a project, where exactly that project file goes. I still haven't quite figured that out. And I've looked through all the files that DaVinci Resolve puts onto your system, and I haven't quite found it yet. But you can pretty easily export your timeline as a DRP file, which is DaVinci Resolve project file. You can have your project file there and transfer it to a different PC if you want to work on it somewhere else and stuff like that. I think I was just a little bit more used to Adobe Premiere Pro, is when you make that project, you automatically get Adobe Premiere's project files for that specific project. And usually they're right there in the folder that you initially put them in. So I'm sure those files are somewhere, I just haven't quite found them yet. So that's going to wrap up this video, guys. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and this gave you a really good insight on why I switched to DaVinci Resolve and so far how my experience has been. And I'd say overall it's been excellent, with all of the pros being said in my transition going from Premiere Pro to Resolve. The workflow has pretty much stayed the same, so that's been good, and I haven't had to change up too much of how I work on my videos. Moving forward, I kind of plan on sticking with DaVinci Resolve for a while, and maybe potentially purchasing the studio version, and I might go back to Premiere Pro and see what the latest updates have been like and see if they got some of those bugs worked out. But other than that, I really don't see a reason to go back. DaVinci Resolve is handling everything that I do very well, so without any encoding errors, so I'm able to edit and export no problem. So as long as that remains the same, I'll probably be on DaVinci Resolve. So I definitely recommend this software for anybody that wants to start getting into video editing, somebody that wants to start making videos for YouTube, or maybe somebody that wants to edit some of their gameplay from their streams and make some VODs for YouTube or stuff like that, and anything else. I think this is a really great piece of software to get started with, and very cost efficient piece of software to get started with, being free. That's it for this one, guys. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to drop a like on it, and if you want to see more tech related videos like this one, be sure to subscribe. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.